אוקיי, אני אגיד משפט אחד בעברית, ואז נעבור לשיחה באנגלית. היי, אני דנה פרנק, נמצאת איתי חברתי האהובה והיקרה, נועם שוסטר אליאסי.
We're switching to English in a second.
We're switching to English in a second. Maybe we should just do it now. Okay, so this conversation is going to be in English. We're recording this conversation as part of special broadcasting day we're doing here from the House of Romano in Tel Aviv. This is part of a collaboration between Culture of Solidarity and the TEDL. And you are very much invited to donate money for Culture of Solidarity, which is a mutual aid organization that's been working for the past 4 years on providing food and helping in humanitarian crisis that we're seeing right now. Noam, hi.
Hi.
I asked you how you were the other day. I asked you what your schedule was the other day, and you gave me a very pungent answer. Would you like to repeat it?
My answer was that everything is cancelled until further notice.
So what you really said was at 12, I'm meeting my psychologist. Till then, I have psychosis, which I thought was very spot on and like a very, very accurate description of what we're all experiencing right now.
Wow, הדחקתי, איך אומרים?
You repressed the whole thing.
I repressed the answer that I gave you, but it's very, very, it is
When you meet this
accurate.
part, the repressed part of yourself, you can see it.
Yeah.
So what are we going to talk about today?
I think, well, first of all, we've been asking followers and audience from all over the world to send us questions. So we're going to read some of the questions and we're also going to answer some of them, I hope.
Best as we can.
But I think, before we move into the questions, I was hoping... Hoping is a big word.
Yeah, hope is powerful.
I just feel, for the people who are watching, it's hard to sense the energy. There are a few people here behind the camera and everyone is with their phones and everyone is kind of like, the energy is dead. We are, I think since everything started on October 7th, we've been kind of walking as kind of, shadows of ourselves.
So funny that you say that because I find myself, when someone asks me how I am, I'm just saying, I feel like a ghost.
A ghost.
Which is not a feeling I've ever had before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, when you asked me, I thought that from everything that I'm getting online, which is a lot of hate and a lot of, right-wing bigots and really the...
Hate all around, really.
Yeah, hate all around. There is also an overwhelming amount of love and support and a genuine attempt for people to understand what the fuck is going on. And not only what is going on, but specifically, for us. And I've been referring to us as like the lonely people in this entire מערכה. איך אומרים מערכה?
You can say entire crisis, I think.
Yeah, in this crisis, there is, when I say us, I mean like the lonely people that are trying to hold, I think, a lot of pain.
Also to hold multiple truths in this moment, which is painfully asking us to pick a side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the culture of solidarity, the House of Solidarity, where we're sitting now, it's, your home, my home. I bring here all the materials before I take them to a bigger audience. We have, a community here that echoes, beyond just, Israelis and Palestinians, queers and progressives, Arabs and Jews. It's beyond that. It's an entire, movement of people that I can only imagine and trace in my thoughts what has been the process that we've been going through since everything started. And the gap of information, the gap of emotions, the gap of feelings, the gap of the information that is going out there, it prevented us from grieving. It prevented us from, feeling our pain because we are people who take responsibility so quickly. And we're like, okay, this has happened. So I have the responsibility to understand very, very quickly what is happening so that I can tell it to the world so that people don't get misinformation, so that my feelings are, valid and my pain is valid. And And there are so many painful truths within that I think that, chronologically, I have a need to understand chronologically what the fuck happened.
Right.
Because
and also, it brings up so many questions, because when do you start your timeline?
Exactly. When do you start
your timeline?
Is it
1948? Is it last year? Like anywhere in between? Right.
And this is the brokenness, right? Where objectively we woke up on October 7th to hell.
Yes.
We woke up realizing that there is a massacre.
Mm-hmm.
We woke up realizing that the biggest fear, the biggest nightmare that you and I had, because we've been telling the world, we have to bring an end to the occupation. We have to have a long-term kind of prospect and hope for people so that this violence won't start, right?
In Hebrew, it's called managing the conflict.
Yeah.
Which is a great term that's really, it's been proving itself so beautifully.
Yeah. And we've been warning, like you and I literally, like we're holding signs every week in protests. We've been telling the world,
this is unsustainable.
There is a government here that is dangerous, and a crisis and a huge thing is going to happen, and we've been warning people. We've been telling them, and then you wake up in the morning and your biggest nightmares and your biggest fears are unfolding. And not only are they unfolding, they're unfolding in the most violent, horrific way that you can imagine that can happen to humans. And on top of that, you realize as hours go by that it's happening also to people who are part of us. Right. So we start recognizing the names, and we start recognizing activists. And Vivian, the peace activist, my mother's friend, we find out that she's kidnapped. And then we find out that Chaim Katzman, who is an anti-occupation activist, is also abducted. And then you find out that the family of Osnat Rabelsi, who's one of the biggest filmmakers of anti-occupation films that we've had, that her nephew is in danger. And my comedy writer, that all my followers and all the audience here, they've been hearing the jokes and hearing from her family is also, one of her family members or cousin is in the party, and you're watching this unfold in front of you, and your community also. You realize that it's not just something that is happening in the South to people that you don't know and to people who are far away from you. It is happening to us, literally to us, to people who are us.
So I want to say that, I think that everyone right now in Israel knows someone personally, or I think that everyone I know has been to at least one funeral or one shiva in the past 10 days, which is insane to think about. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I saw that you wrote in one of your Instagram stories that we're a whole population that's reliving generational trauma. And I think this speaks a lot about the feeling that we now have.
Yeah.
It's both the Israeli population and the Palestinian population.
Right.
Yeah. And,
I think there was in the beginning kind of a disbelief of the kind of news that we were getting, right? It's like, is this really, is this the scale? What is this, the party, we didn't know what to look at. Like we're hearing that the houses in the kibbutz are burning and Sderot is burning and the police station is burning. And then we hear of the party and we hear of the
trucks with people, with terrorists on them in the streets of Sderot.
And
it all seems unrealistic.
Yeah, unrealistic. And, and the first message that I get as I'm trying to figure out, because we were getting phone calls of friends of family, of family of friends, and the first message that I get to my Instagram, to my DM, is from someone I don't know, obviously, who sends me a message. The fact that you haven't posted anything about your own people being slaughtered is a testament to how much of a traitor you are and how much of a disgrace you are to the Jewish people.
What time of the day was that?
This was, I was escaping the fourth siren from Jaffa, going to my parents' house. And I'm arriving there and I see my mother on the sofa in the living room crying. And, she's mumbling Vivian, we don't know where Vivian is. We think that she's kidnapped, she was in touch, because she's her colleague and her friend. So they have a WhatsApp group of her friends who are trying to, understand what's happening. And so I'm seeing my mother crying on the floor. And then a friend of mine is sending me a message that her cousin is in the party, and another friend is telling me a message, no, my cousin is missing, he's in that party. And I go on Instagram and I get these lunatic messages of this cyber war narrative of people sitting online in their homes and preaching to us what to do with our pain, when we still have no idea what our pain is, what the fuck is happening. Like I think this is the gap that, that is so painful and has been, painful on my heart for, to explain to people. There was a gap of a few hours, and it extended into, I think, an entire day, yes, where we had uncertainty. Like, we didn't know what was happening. There was such a disbelief, and it's one thing when it's us and we're trying to, figure it out amongst ourselves, but it's another thing when the world watching us and they're preaching to us.
Yes.
And they're preaching to us on all levels.
And they're grading us, our responses.
And, so that's why I started with this response, of this woman telling me, you're a disgrace to the Jewish people. You haven't posted about your own people being slaughtered, right? After a few hours, I took a deep breath and I'm like, okay, I have to address this and start moving, online, because my friends are looking for their relatives, right? We were mobilizing online because we were also looking for people.
So just spreading information to help people find their relatives, yes, their friends.
Right.
Which was, again, we just had another conversation about it. Again, kind of falls to the realm of civilians, because there was no governmental response. Nothing for hours.
People were trapped in their homes, burned homes, and with no help. And we, the civilians, we realized that, we were reading on Twitter, on people that we know, we're trapped. Please save us. So what do? We can't go to the south, like take a car and start driving into the fire.
So, it's worth mentioning that some people did do it. Which is crazy.
And saved people and also got killed.
Sure.
Yes, that is true. Like the civilians took their own
faith in their hands.
Yeah, and they're still doing it.
Yes.
Actually. And then, because of the uncertainty and because of the gap of the information, we start posting about the horrors that we're seeing unfolding, and then the cyber war narrative begins. And the progressives and the leftists and everyone who has an opinion about what is going on here, before they even listened to us and before they even knew what was happening, they started preaching to us. And the word that was so triggering in the beginning was the context. Give us the context in which these horrors are happening to you. And I'm like, can you just go look at my Instagram page real quick while I help my friends locate their families? Can I have 5 minutes to mourn and figure out what the fuck is happening before you ask me for context and to give a framing and analysis? And then,
can I just be a human for a second and not be your, online representative of the conflict?
And my grief within that was that I knew exactly where these people were coming from, right?
Where were they coming from?
They're coming from pain and fear that what we're seeing is real. And when we're seeing such amount of violence on the Israeli side, Palestinians already know that they're the ones who are going to pay the price, right? And so the fear and the silence that we were experiencing from Palestinians and the world demand for context was two things. It was fear, like, what the fuck is happening? So many Israelis are abducted, hurt, It's Israel. We're strong. We are, an occupying force. We're gonna retaliate immediately. But immediately we didn't retaliate because the army was nowhere to be found, and there was nothing. So we were begging for people to understand that there is an ongoing disaster happening, and the Palestinians were, the ones that were in contact with me were on one hand very, very fearful, and on the other hand there was some kind of a denial because we haven't seen this extent of you know,
Atrocities? How can you call this?
the other side is actually broke through the fence. They actually did that. Like it, there was no army, there was no protection, there was no one to meet them there.
We now know that was like what it seemed like at the first few hours, but we now know that there was an army and there were like terrible cases.
Exactly.
In that
so
sense
that's
too.
where the analysis comes into place,
Right.
right? That's where the context comes into place.
Right.
We had no space to explain to people that you and I have been protesting against this government. What has this government been doing? They've been taking out forces from the Gaza Strip and putting them in Huwara and in the West Bank to satisfy this settler fascist government. Therefore, the soldiers that were supposed to be in the Gaza Strip were in the West Bank, in Huwara, or wherever they were. And this is what is causing, you know, whatever it is happening. But wait, we're
This
not
is like
robots.
the basic conditions of instability. I think that the most like the best description I saw of it was in the interview with Atari. Have you watched it?
Yes. Yeah.
And it was a very, very painful interview. She was hiding for 27 hours with a 1-month-old baby in a pile of fertilizers. And she lost her husband in the process. And when asked by the interviewee, where was the government, she said, I think they were on Twitter because they were not there. And that was so spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're still on Twitter.
They're still on Twitter and they're still not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're still not there. And I mean, we'll get to that, I think, in a second, because what is happening now, the senseless bombardment and the aggression with no strategy, with no answers. They turned on
openly say we don't have a goal.
We don't have a goal. We don't have a strategy.
Goal.
And what that means is shut the fuck up. We're in war. Yeah. I don't need to give you answers. And I don't need to give the families of the kidnapped answers. And right now it's a war. Don't criticize me. Don't investigate me. I'm operating as a government that needs to retaliate against terrorists, right?
So now I just want to put this in context. But I have to say that right now we're in a very, very weird situation in which the people asking for a captives treaty, is that the word?
Yeah.
To deal with the people who have been abducted are considered leftist
and traitors
just for saying like we want our kids back, we want to see the babies that were abducted,
and actual people attacking them and silencing them to the extent where I read this, like, you know, it is heartbreaking to watch. The prime minister, it took him a week or something to speak to them.
Yeah.
And Biden, you know, Biden is here right now. It's like the hugging grandfather has arrived, and he's giving more warmth, more understanding, more promises, and more certainty to the families of the kidnapped than their own absent leader, like useless leader, like, you know, fascist criminal that somehow has his hands on the wheel and he has no idea what he's doing, including his government.
So let's just give what happened was that on Friday, 6 days after the events of October 7th, I was sitting at a family dinner with my mom, and we got this push notification that announced that Biden just met with families of the captives. Mm-hmm. The president of a much bigger country. And then 30 minutes later, it was like a special announcement from Prime Minister Netanyahu. And my mom was like, let's watch. And I was like, I'm done watching this, man. I'm done.
Yeah.
And he was like, his announcement was, I talked to them too. Like, I reached out too. And like, did you really have to wait 6 days and for the leader of another country to speak with these people before you will make the time to talk to them yourself?
You know, I think it's needless to say that the most immediate thing that needs to happen is a ceasefire, right?
For sure.
Not only because we want the hostages back, it's a ceasefire because this is a catastrophe. It's a horror. It needs to stop immediately. The fact that the hostages are not even
considered,
not only are they not considered, the narrative that is, you know, being created right now is to completely disregard them because they are the danger of creating the mishvah,
the new balance of power,
where because of them we will have to stop the fire against Hamas.
Yeah.
even though we are killing, ruthlessly hundreds and thousands of innocent people and uprooting people from their homes without nobody's thinking what's going to happen after that.
Yeah.
Nobody's acting like a leader. The people who are acting like leaders are the families of the kidnapped, who are going out to the media and saying, put our children's lives
ahead of your
your
non-existing goals, really.
And also families of people that we know who were murdered,
yes,
who are going to the media and saying, do not weaponize the pain of my family members who were just murdered to inflict more pain.
For sure.
And for a revenge campaign. And you look at the people, and we have also the father of Noah.
Yeah, Noah
Gamani, the girl that everyone saw her, being kidnapped on the motorcycle.
Screaming, please don't kill me.
He is looking at the camera. It was like hours after his daughter was kidnapped, and he's saying, stop it. Like, we want peace.
Yeah.
Don't continue with this. Don't continue with this just
senseless cycle of hurts, of pain.
And the weaponizing of the pain here, we have to understand very, very, deeply how I think people need to understand, first of all, that inside Israel, Palestinian citizens of Israel are not only being silenced and threatened, they are being arrested.
Yes.
There is a teacher from the north who was arrested because she follows a page on Instagram that is called Eye on Palestine.
I follow it too.
We follow it and we follow also like right-wing trolls because you follow pages on Instagram. It doesn't make you less of a human being.
It's so amazing that you have to explain it.
And so she was taken from her home. A singer, a very, very prominent and popular singer, Dalal Abu Amne, was arrested also because of a story that she posted on her Instagram.
Yeah.
And hundreds of Palestinian citizens of Israel are being threatened, and the silence of my friends, Palestinian citizens of Israel, in Jaffa, in Nazareth, in Haifa, their silence is a silence that is frightening.
Mm-hmm.
It is a silence that is so loud because they're sitting at home scared, not able to articulate anything, not able to put their pain forward because they're afraid of every knock on the door could be, an arrest, an accusation of supporting terror without them doing anything.
And I have to say, again, we're seeing this happen as we see the government completely failing on any aspect of life, but they have enough manpower to do this.
Exactly. So you have manpower to go and arrest people just to, put fear and terror into citizens, lives.
While we're talking, I just want to put, into context also that we hear a lot from the Bedouin community down south.
Yeah.
Many of them were victims or took part in the rescue attempts of citizens in the south. And still we know that these people have absolutely no... They don't have any protection. Yeah. They don't have safe rooms.
Yeah.
They suffer from the supply chain crisis that we're seeing right now, especially down south, more than anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But circling back to the story, I mean, you posted today the question box, and I saw that someone asked you, are citizens, are they scared to say the truth? And if so, what is the truth?
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of what we're saying right now is the truth, but how do you answer to that?
I mean, truth is
it's a big word.
It's a big word, and it's a very tricky word also. We're seeing, the amount of how much the world is dealing with us right now. How much everyone online is talking about this piece of land. People who are
smaller than Camden, New Jersey.
Yeah, people who are, poets and writers and people who have never been here, and people, we stir so much emotions around the world. Partly because, there are Muslim communities everywhere. There are Arab communities everywhere. There are Palestinian diaspora. Then there are Jewish communities everywhere. It's like the crossroads of everything, happening in the diaspora that is coming out of here. There is something, that happens in the Holy Land that affects so many people. And we're hearing stories, there was in Illinois, there was
assault of a child.
Yeah, and he was murdered. He was stabbed like a few times by his neighbor that apparently was his friend, and suddenly just completely turned on him and also stabbed his mother. And we're seeing also Jews who are being attacked.
We saw in Berlin several cases of Jewish homes and Jewish businesses marked by the Star of David, which is
yeah, and
and I think what you're saying here, but it's the most painful thing. We're seeing the unraveling of communities that have been, a community for many, many years.
yeah.
Something is really falling apart.
It is falling apart, and I'll say that for us, I don't know how to call our community, like the activist piece, like community. I'm present on social media, but I'm very, very scared, and I'm not saying everything that I want to say.
And still you say so much more than anyone I know.
But I see, we have a friend, an activist friend, her name, face, address, and telephone number were
doxed.
Yeah. Into a telegram of like right-wing bigots, and she's being haunted. Mm-hmm. That is scary, because if my name, your name, whoever's name gets to one of those groups, it is scary. And it is scary because of what happened to our friend, journalist Israel Frey.
Yes,
who is
in hiding.
He's in hiding. He's an ultra-Orthodox. I highly recommend that you check out his social media and like translate some of the things that he's saying. I mean, he's an extremely brave person.
Yeah. He's an Orthodox Jew, but he's a very unorthodox personality. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that really got people rallied was that he said, rallied, what a pleasant word. Furious and violent was that he said he is saying Kaddish, which is the prayer that Jews say on the dead for the children in Gaza too, and that was enough for people to dox him,
to go to his home,
hundreds of people,
his home,
and he was the police escorted him to his car, but that was that. They just followed him to his car, and then he somehow got into a hospital, and he's now in hiding.
And he's now in hiding for showing sympathy and, for innocent children in Gaza. It's not like...
He wasn't saying the Hamas was right, because no one thinks the Hamas is right?
Yeah. So back to hell.
Back to hell.
That is, online presence these days, where people are just shouting cyber war narratives into each other. I think one of the things that have been, saving me, but not really saving me, because I felt miserable being online, and I feel miserable being offline if I'm not speaking out. So it's...
Why?
Silent. I find my fear to speak up
more depressing than speaking up and getting the backlash.
It is more depressing to stay silent for me. Yeah. I don't know. It's an impossibility. I don't know. I don't know how to exist shutting up. I don't know how to do it practically. And so I think that on the first days of this catastrophe, I was really, I was letting my emotions really kind of take over, and I was really into it, and I was also really, really alone with our pain, realizing that a lot of people that I didn't think that will be silent are silent, and realizing that there is so much pain that some of our partners in the movement are not even able to say the basic things. Like I was letting it get to me. I was being angry. I tried to do a live in the first days, and it was such a mistake. It was such a mistake, because the first days it was so raw, and we didn't know what was happening, that I just felt miserable, because I think I was desperately seeking for empathy from people who can't give me empathy at the moment, people that I thought were my political partners but are just afraid, or they actually can't, for so many reasons, give us the empathy that we need and acknowledge our pain, because they knew, that the retaliation or whatever, that the תגובת נגד.
Retaliation, but I'm also thinking, I think about this all the time, Noam. Today I got a message from someone I know, and it was something in the realm of, I'm trying to reach out to someone who's not from here and like an activist. And she was like, I'm trying to reach out, but I'm not sure if you're the same Dana that I know and love. I'm not sure because I know that many Israelis have changed. And I'm like, are you checking me to see if I'm morally adequate for your empathy?
I think there was a disbelief that these things can happen and we will stay with our moral compass, like right where it is, and it will not move a millimeter.
I think that like the basic facts are always the same and will always be. I always thought that being part of the movement, of the peace movement, is saying, I will never support the death of innocents, right? Never. Not children, not the elderly, not anyone who's not, anyone. I don't think that the death of soldiers is something to be celebrated as well. Just saying, I don't think death is a reason to celebrate. And when I see what's happening in Yale, when I see like people actually having like festivities to celebrate the succession, it makes me sick.
But I think that what became my practice, and I'm still like, I'm miserable, right? I'm like in between the worlds. I'm like, Palestinian followers, Jewish activist followers, people from around the world trying to figure out what was happening. And I think that I picked myself up somehow, still am, all of us are.
You're a hero.
And
no, I think so.
I'm like, I'm holding pain of the two people. Like this is what I've been practicing to do my entire life. And this is the time where people need me. And like, I've had so many activists reach out to me and saying, we can't say anything, please, almost like a request, like hold my pen. And I just want to read one. I mean, I got so many messages.
Yes.
But there is one message that it just ripped my heart apart. And I think that it really resonates with so many of the people that are in our circles, who are like the lonely people that I call, the people who are trying to hold pain of both people. And so this person wrote, I just wanted to thank you so much for being a light in all of this. I am American with all my family in Israel, and my uncle and his wife were taken hostage, and we have no idea if they're alive. Through this agony, I haven't even been able to share with friends what's going on, because they think that by sharing my grief and concern for my family, it means that I'm not for Palestinian liberation. And meanwhile, my family in Israel doesn't understand why I'm not posting about what's happening and sharing their pleas for support to get the hostages back. I feel so sick that I'm unable to support my family. I can't go on social media right now, but you're one of the few voices that feels safe. I don't expect you to respond. Please rest instead of responding. But I just wanted you to know that you are a treasure, and I'm so grateful for you and your work. Sending you much love. Now, I didn't read this to get an applaud, even though an applaud right now would be really amazing. Thank you. Just kidding. But I feel like a failure, because I feel like I've done the bare minimum. And what is the bare minimum that we're asking from humanity right now? The bare minimum.
What is it, Noam? Tell me.
Don't fucking be an asshole.
Right.
Try to not, when people are telling you that they're grieving.
It's the golden rule, really.
No,
Don't
but people are telling you that they're grieving. People are telling you that they're in pain. What is your fucking problem denying people's pain? Why can't we hold people's pain? And why does your pain need to come on the expense of my pain? And if this pain happened to me, it means that your pain is going to be, I mean.
We keep forgetting that empathy is messy. Empathy is not something that you can just direct in one line and, in accordance to what is right. And when people start doing that, I get so confused and so like this, I feel depleted, really. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. This is, I feel for this person, and I feel for all of us.
Yeah.
I feel that social media has become, I made the mistake of looking at the comments for Owen Ziv.
Oy.
Yeah.
Oy, oy, oy.
Who's a photographer who works with active stills. This guy was, documenting the Palestinian struggle for many, many years. And he posted a bunch of photos from one of the kibbutzim. And all of the responses were like, you keep saying that there are dead children. Can we see photos? And I'm like, do you really want to see photos of dead children? Is this what's becoming of humanity right now?
And the testimonies of, of the sexual assaults that are so triggering. And
God.
It's like, here is a painful truth that needs to be said. And you know what? I mean, maybe I'll regret saying this in front of so many people, but whatever. I have been so outspoken about the war crimes and the fucking horrors that my side has been doing. Men act like war criminals in war and do horrific things. If you think that your side, the people that pretend to represent you, they don't represent you, just like our government doesn't represent us.
For sure.
If you don't believe that your side can do such horrible things, and you're going out of your way to prove that you're the most moral army in the world, I am an expert in that, because the Israeli narrative has been trying to brainwash us to show the world how we are the most moral army. You can't fool me. I know that an army is not moral. I've been fighting my whole life showing the world that my own army is not the most moral army in the world. So you want to convince me that your fighters are moral? What the fuck is this? And also, when I speak, about the occupation, and when I speak about Israeli war crimes, you believe me. So now I'm speaking about the pain of the people close to me. So why don't you believe me? Why do you need receipts? You just believed me a few days ago when I talked about what the army is doing, what the Israeli army is doing to the Palestinians. So suddenly I'm not a source. Suddenly you don't believe me. That was painful.
You're biased. Yeah.
That was painful.
Sounds
that
extremely
was painful. And honestly, it was painful, and there is room to discuss this. And also 12 days have passed since then, and now we are also in a completely different place in terms of how the world sees, what is happening here, because the death toll on the Palestinian side and the complete destruction and horrors that we're doing, without any. I mean, it's just a revenge campaign that there is no leader behind it to give us answers.
Yeah.
It's a revenge campaign to shut us down, to shut us up, so that we don't ask questions. But our followers did ask questions.
Let's try to get to them. We've been talking for a long time. Let's give some other people the stage.
Where is the question that I wanted to?
Just to be clear, you said that you highlighted them.
I did highlight them, and I can't see it now. How? Sorry.
Take your time.
Wow.
I can see that there are so many questions. Yeah.
Okay. So, sorry. Here it is. What do you wish, want, need from American Jews living in the U.S.? And I think there is a continuation to the. There are a few questions that are along this line.
What do you want and wish from American Jews living in the U.S.?
Yeah, and I think someone also said it.
But wait, what do you wish? I really want to know.
But the continuation of this of this question is also, what can we do to lift up the voices of the silenced? Right. Okay. So I first of all, shut the fuck up and listen.
Yeah.
Before you hit the share button, seriously, people from Israel, Palestine, Jews, Palestinians here in the diaspora, everywhere. Pick up your fucking phone and ask.
How are you doing?
How are you doing? Pick up a fucking book and article that is a trusted resource instead of retweeting Ben Shapiro or other, unreliable resources, and read and educate yourselves from reliable resources.
And also, I think that, I want to applaud to that, but I want to say that a lot of what's going on here does not succumb to your binary thinking.
Right.
There are no teams here. These are just people trying to make a living in a very, very, very complicated part of the world. And if you cannot understand this, at least respect it.
Yeah.
Respect that you don't understand.
Yeah. It does, this binary discussion it's so alienating, to hear it from the US, because there are so many Jewish activists that I'm so proud of, but they've completely fallen into the trap of ignoring us, completely not seeing us, not seeing the Palestinians, right? Not seeing any sort of nuances. So the first thing is, to check on the real people that you know, to ask questions before posting, to truly be interested before speaking. The other thing is put pressure on your elected officials, on your elected government, on people in power, in your arena, in your organizations, in your networks, in your whatever, to put pressure on an immediate ceasefire. We need an immediate stop of bombardment. We were just in the shelter before starting this
this session.
And we have shelters, and we have and we're still in our homes, and we are safe. The humanitarian crisis and the crisis that the destruction, it just can't go, it can't go on, and the excuse to just save the hostages is an argument, but it's not enough. There are people who don't deserve to go through these horrors. So
no one deserves to go through these horrors.
Yeah. The other thing is you don't have to do anything.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
You can sit.
You can sit this one out.
Yeah, no, and I'm also telling this to myself. We're all taking such huge responsibilities on ourselves. You can observe and learn and be a human and feel empathy, and put the pressure on justice and ceasefire and an immediate stop of bloodshed, and it's enough.
Yeah, it is only the most complicated conflict that's still going on. You don't really need to become an expert in 10 minutes and post about it to your social media accounts. Wherever you are, I don't know who needs to hear this, but please bear in mind.
But I mean, there are people who are seeking agency. There are people who really care about, about us, about the Palestinians, about, these causes. And you want to have a voice, and then you want to have agency, and you want to take action. So the ways in which we take action nowadays is online, because when you've posted something and when you've echoed something that in your mind is the right call for action, you feel satisfied. You feel like you've done something good.
Yeah.
So I don't want to discourage people from doing that, but I do want people to be, informed about what it is that is happening, and the gaps of information and the misinformation that is also happening. We are seeing here, I mean, I think that the wave of grief and the amount of grief that is happening, here in Israel, internally in Israel, the amount of fear that leftists are experiencing from speaking out, the amount also of confusion, of not knowing what to do with our sadness and our loss.
That ghostly feeling that we talked about.
Yeah. It's completely, it's lost in translation with the rest of the world. Yeah.
Agreed. We have to come to conclusion of this incredible session. Because we have our next act waiting. So just a quick reminder for anyone that's watching us right now that if you want to support a movement that's been taking care and feeding the masses here in Israel and Palestine and supporting undocumented communities, then there's the button right here. I've been promised that it's right above the screen. So go ahead, click it, give us some money. What do you take from this session? Do you feel a little bit better than you did when we first sat on this couch after we went to the shelter?
No.
Oh, God. I'm sorry, honey.
It's going to be... No, I mean, let's say the truth. We have a long road ahead of us. Things will not be the same.
Never.
And we have so much repairing to do, and so much...
healing.
Yeah, and we just really, really, we are now living on a prayer that, to minimize the misery, and to minimize as much as we can the loss, the meaningless and senseless loss of more lives. So we are in this, like, you know, we're processing in front of people while we're still in this. So we just want people to know that things are changing very, very quickly, and we're in this, and it's not over. And I think we have a responsibility to, you know, to continue. Our moral compass is not mine, hasn't moved 1 millimeter, you know, and now, you know, we're needed more. And so we try to take care of ourselves mentally, physically. Our political space is it's
shrinking, and it's not sure where are the leaders we try to find.
So within that shrinking space, we will try to operate as much as we can.
Okay, honey, I hope that you will find the oxygen needed and the energy needed to keep on bringing to this world your important voice. We're about to close this session. Thank you very much for watching. We're going to switch back to Hebrew. And now we're going to take a 20-minute break, I think. And we're going to be back here with the beautiful music of Zoe Polanski that will get our mind at ease, get ready to sleep. Thank you.